What is going on, guys? This is future me. Welcome back to another video. So I just needed to give a little bit of a preface to this video. Unfortunately, things did not go quite as planned for this video. I had really high hopes for the Radiator, and I kind of had it in my head that it was just going to pretty much solve all of the cooling issues right off the bat. Well, TLDR, it did not solve all the cooling issues. However, I do not think it was the Radiator, and I will explain why in the ending of this video. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll the clips that I took during the day. They're going to include just, my thought process during the day, how I was going through the day, and then of course some racing. Unfortunately, the video has a little bit of a bad mood to it. The car was still overheating. I wasn't able to really throttle out of corners like I felt the car should be able to. And just struggling with the tune all day. It just wanted to keep breaking up in the back corner. Not necessarily like break up, but you could feel that the car was knocking and then retarding timing to keep itself from having some issues with the engine. So anyways, without further ado, let's go ahead and watch the clips from the day. And if you guys don't want to watch those clips, because honestly, my mood wasn't the best during that day. And if you're just in it for the information, go ahead and skip to this time right here. That's going to be where the information is that I'm going to do an audio overlay after with all the data that I've got from the track day. So yeah, let's go ahead and watch the video. What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. This is the first video that I'm starting with a muffin in my hand. So today is the day. We're out here at Las Vegas Motor Speedway outside road course. We're going to be testing the PWR Radiator in the Type R. I am stoked for this. Hopefully I can finally complete more than 2 laps without overheating. Just the nature of this car just makes that happen. So hopefully with a new radiator, all that extra cooling, we'll be able to put down a couple more laps or maybe even a whole session. Time to find out. So finish this muffin, head to the driver's meeting, and get out racing.
Rules. So red and green are open passing, and orange is point by. Remember, for red and green, we want you to work together to make passes happen. So it's not just the responsibility of the passing driver to find an opportunity and execute on it. We want you, the driver in front, to be aware of who's...
Just finished up with the driver's meeting. Time to put the transponder on. Try to beat Brandon, and it's gonna be a good day. Let's end it. All right, guys, I'm sitting in my car. We just finished session 2. I'm a little bit disappointed right now. Sorry, I'm sitting in the car for this one because it's so windy outside that you literally wouldn't even be able to hear me. So issue number one is the AIM Solo is causing some sort of weird issue with the Hondata, and they won't work together. So the Hondata just freaks out, but at least the AIM works. And issue number two is, unfortunately, the car is still overheating, like really bad. I can't finish a lap. It's basically like I'll let off, I'll go to a pace that's like 5 to 7 seconds slower than where I was at 5 to 7 on the slow side. Sometimes I'm going like 3 to 4 seconds slower than where I was paced at. So like, you know, half, maybe 60% throttle, and it's still just spiking temperature. Honestly, it's the worst I've ever seen the car get. Something that I just found out is I might have been on the wrong tune, which would explain the hiccups and why the car is also not letting. Yeah, I'm gonna go out and send it. Session 3 coming up in about an hour, and hoping for good results. Again, I'll keep you guys updated. I got plenty of GoPro footage, and so hopefully we'll just make this a good day. I'll do my best to film during the track, but you probably literally won't even be able to hear anything. I mean, I don't know if you can see the trees over there, but it's like 30-mile-an-hour winds gusting to 55, so it's insane. Anyways, this is a 3-minute clip, so I'm gonna be done talking. We'll get back to some driving. Hopefully good results. See you guys in a bit. Just finished session 3. Still overheating. Update to come soon. Sorry, this video has like a bad mood to it now, but it is what it is. Hey guys, future me again. So unfortunately, I totally started the GoPros a little bit late for session 3, so I don't really have any footage. And I'm gonna use the same term again, TLDR, the car overheated. I wasn't able to accelerate out of corners, and I also forgot to put gas in it. So after the second lap, or I'm sorry, the out lap, I did my lap and I looked down and it was out of gas. So I was like, well, that was dumb. Just came in, pitted, was like, it's literally no different. So that's how that session went. But cool news, Brandon actually was so gracious enough to let me drive his car. So I do have some super awesome footage from that. And what we did was we swapped the tires, or wheels, I guess, from my car onto his car, so I didn't blow through his RE71s, since they like to go bye-bye on the track. And there's some pretty awesome results. So I'm gonna go ahead and roll that clip, and then I will go ahead and talk about it afterwards. And so check it out. So as y'all can see from that clip, I was quite excited about the lap just going so much better than it did in my car. So for reference, I did a 2:01.4 as the fastest in my car. And in Brandon's car first, that was literally my first lap out in his car. Effortlessly just did a 1:57.6 with a 1:56.2 as the predictive. So it was just worlds different. As you can see, the car accelerated out of corners. It just overall gripped better, and the temperature stayed a little bit lower. And of course, I was just able to, being on the last lap in the day, there was less people out. So it's a little bit less traffic, easier to put down a fast lap on your immediate timeout. Anyways, with that being said, if you guys watched this part of the video, thank you so much. Now we're going to go ahead and move on to the data. I'm going to go ahead and throw the aim data that I have from both Brandon's car and my car here, and we'll check it out. Hey everyone, welcome to the data overview portion of this video. This is probably the 12th time I've recorded this for various reasons. So hopefully this time is the charm. If you made it this far in the video, thank you for watching. If you skipped to here, hopefully this is worth your time. And if you watched any of the previous clips, thanks for being a real one. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of the data here. Let me give you kind of an overview of what we're comparing. So we're going to be comparing my car to Brandon's car. Same car, different mods. My car has a PWR track radiator, Acuity reversible hoses, a PRL intercooler, and a 2020 grill. Brandon's car has a Koyorad, a HKS, I think, oil cooler, a Vera style hood, also a PRL intercooler, might have said that already, a more open style grill, and ethanol. I think I covered everything. So his car on paper seems to have a little bit more cooling potential. So we're going to be comparing peaks and falls today on temperatures. Unfortunately, I had the wrong profile loaded into my aim, so the actual peak temperature of my car is off. So it looks like my car is cooling significantly better, not overheating, but it was indeed hitting 240 to 245 degree coolant temps. It just doesn't show that in the data properly because I was using the wrong profile. So sorry about that. I don't think the data is skewed. It seems to still be good data since the peaks and falls are consistent with both cars. The gradual increase of temperature is consistent with both cars. As you can see, if we switch over the data real quick, here you can see gradual increase. This is Brandon's car, same gradual increase. But yeah, let's go ahead and jump right into the first session with my car. I'm going to keep this a little bit short and sweet. If you guys want a longer video, please let me know by dropping a comment down below, but I think this should cover everything you need to know. So let's go ahead and start out with lap 5 and 6. This is my fastest lap and then an immediate cooldown lap. So we could take this one with a little bit of a grain of salt. I definitely was not sending it as hard this session as I did in the next session. And that's because I'm still getting used to the track, getting used to some of the changes I made to the car. But this is a good introduction to the data. So if we look at the peak temperature here on this lap, or peak temperature, 228 degrees. So with that being said, let's go ahead and move over to a fall. So at the very end of my cooldown lap here, which is a 212, so from a 201 to a 212, 11 seconds off pace, we've dropped from 228 down to 186 degrees. So let's round to 230 and 190. That is 40 degrees of temperature drop in about a lap and a quarter, maybe a lap and a third. Yeah, about a lap and a third. That's super impressive. And that was before I rebled the system, put the car up in the air, let it work some bubbles out. It gets even better. So check this out. This is session 2. Keep in mind it's probably 10, 12 degrees hotter session 2 than it was session 1. At this point in the day, it's probably about, I'd say 72 to 75 degrees out. Maybe even a little bit more. This is where the peaks and falls that I was talking about earlier really come into play. So for example, let's start with lap 3 and 4 here. So lap 2 is my fastest. Lap 3 is where the peaks and falls are shown though, due to the fact that this is a on pace and then an off pace lap. So this lap being on pace is a 202. This lap being off pace is a 204. That's only 2 seconds off pace from this lap. But you can see that there was a definitive cooldown section of this lap. So we're now looking at the data for session 2. Peak, 224 degrees. Fall, 199. While that sounds less impressive, you have to look at how much temperature it shed in how short of a time. This is a quarter of the lap left. This is between a quarter to a third into the lap. So in less than half a lap, we've shed 25 degrees of coolant temperature. That's super impressive. It's a lot of coolant temperature to shed, and you can see that I only cooled down for a minor portion of the lap, and the temperature stayed fairly consistent after that. Yes, the lap was off pace, but the PWR radiator is rejecting a lot of heat, and that's shown time and time again. Check this out: peak, fall. Let's even go into the data for these 2 laps here. Peak, 224. Fall, 199. Again, 25 degrees of coolant temperature dropped like that. It's approximately, about the same, a little over half a lap. And the only portion that I'm really off pace on is the straight here. So that's super impressive to see how much heat that the car is able to reject in such a short period of time, with a fairly good portion of the remainder of the lap staying quite on pace. Again, 203, 204. So these 2 laps are nearly identical, with only this portion of the lap staying off pace. Super impressive. So let's go ahead and move over to Brandon's car. I'm sorry. So we are going to be taking a look at 3 different laps here. 2 back-to-back fast laps, almost identical laps, and then a cool-off lap. So we're starting here with the red temperature reflecting lap 2 at 190 degrees. Pretty good temperature. At the end of the lap, we are up to 221 degrees, and that's with ethanol. At the start of lap 3, shown by the blue temperature, we are at 221, as we should be, because that's the end of this one. At the peak temperature here, excuse me, we are at 240 degrees. Sorry, Brandon's car. But this is where the interesting part comes in. So from 240 degrees at the peak temperature of the ending part of the on-pace lap, down to the very end, signified by this pinkish line here, of the off-pace lap, we've gone from, like I said, 240 down to 206. It's a 35-degree temperature loss. But that is over an entire lap, even more than an entire lap. It took over a lap to drop 35 degrees of temperature from a very red zone to a zone that would be remotely worthy of sendable for the next lap. So it took a whole lap in order to do that. And that's with an actual cooldown lap here too. You can see a 157 down to a 211. So that lap is off pace by 14 seconds, which is significantly more off pace than I was with the PWR radiator, dropping 25 degrees over 50% of a lap. Let's go back to our first section of data here. This lap's a 212, this lap's a 201, 11 seconds off pace. This is a pretty close comparison to the Koyarad. We are dropping from, let's go into the right data here. A peak of, let's go around the same section of data so that we have a little bit better readout. 224 down to the same ending of the lap, 186. That is, 190, 224 is 230, so 40 minus 4, almost identical, 35 degrees. Took also a whole lap. But keep in mind, this is a slightly higher peak, and temperatures will tend to fall faster the higher the peak. Actually, I'm sorry, I take that back. This peak is identical due to the skew in temperature. However, we're comparing cooling potential. My car only has a radiator. Brandon's car has the ability to cool the oil and the coolant temperature separately and exhaust heat from the engine bay with the vented hood, whereas my car did not have a vented hood. And on this lap, I did not have the rubber piece removed. So So the radiator's ability, and I also did not have the heater on, whereas I had the heater on in his car during that time, and also on my car for this session. So the radiator by itself was able to drop about 35 to 40 degrees, which is super impressive considering it took the same amount of time to drop that with the ability to cool the oil and the engine coolant independently. So this data seems to prove that the PWR radiator is shedding heat at a much faster rate than the Koyo Rad, which is super awesome. So if you guys are looking for a radiator to help aid in your overheating problems, look no further than the PWR track radiator. It definitely makes a difference. I know some of this data doesn't necessarily point to a positive aspect for the PWR radiator, but that's A, because I accidentally used the wrong profile, and B, there are multiple variables between our cars. So take this sort of with a grain of salt for now. I will make a follow-up video in the future when I get my oil cooler and my Veristyle hood on to see what the temperature differences are. However, as best as I can explain this to you guys, the PWR radiator is doing the same work that the Koyo radiator and the oil cooler and the other mods are, which is super impressive, pretty awesome. Granted, it is heating up a little faster, but that does make sense because there's only one cooling source, whereas Brandon's car with two cooling sources, I was able to get about 2 laps before I would get to the same spot as the PWR after one. But again, only one cooling source. So pretty impressive to see how fast this radiator is able to bleed temperature. Just a few things I'd like to note here before we close out. I think that the PWR radiator almost requires a vented hood. And the reason I think that is because of how fast it's able to shed coolant temperature. If you're shedding that much temperature straight into the engine bay, you're going to see higher IATs and also just a hotter engine in general. It needs to be able to go somewhere. So having a vented hood will help remove a lot of that heat from the engine bay that the PWR radiator is going to generate as it's cooling the cooling temperature. Anyways, hopefully this data made sense to you guys. Hopefully I presented it in such a way to kind of give you guys an idea of what I'm looking at here. Last thing I'd like to note, this track is hard on cars. Every Type R, no matter what mods it had, was overheating there. All drivers on a similar pace, between a 157 to a 203, oil coolers, vented hoods, crazy radiators, secondary race radiators, all that stuff overheated. Stock tune with all the cooling power, overheated. This track was just mean to cars. It's not necessarily the best test bench, I know that, but if we're just simply looking at the data from the ability for the radiator to go from a peak to a fall, the PWR radiator is shedding a lot of heat. It is impressive to see how fast it is going. Again, if you're trying to solve your cooling problems, go with the PWR track radiator and don't look back. Do the supporting mods. It is worth it. Anyways, guys, as I was saying before, thank you so much for watching this video. If you made it all the way to the end, you're a real one. I will be catching you guys in the next video. Drop a comment down below for next video that you'd like to see. Smash that like button if you like this video. Hit that subscribe button to stay updated with all of the future content. And I will see you guys next time. Peace.